This is where the atheists gather. This is home. This is LATV 2.0.
What we are going to do, since we do have a new co-host, we're going to talk about her for a bit. So, let's blow her up. There we go.
I'm doing it.
Front center. There she is.
She's Hertzy's cat. Is the newest member of our.
Yeah, Hertzy's cat. It's not Hertzy.
We'll have a different cat each time.
Hertzy's just a translator.
Give us a good little bio of you and where you came from, your apostasy, all that, if that's relevant. Let the audience know who you are.
Oh, I always blank when people ask me that. But I am Hertzy. I am from Minnesota, the Minneapolis Twin Cities area.
That's not your fault.
Yeah, we apologize for you.
That's not your fault.
On Canada's behalf.
Minnesotans like to think that we're like this close to Canadians because we apologize a lot of time too.
Yeah. So, do you say A?
No, but we do say "ope."
Close. Okay. Yeah, we could work with this.
You know, this sucks because now I'm gonna have to say from BC and from Florida and from Texas and from Minnesota. I'm just gonna say,
Yeah. So how do we make fun of Minnesotans in the
North America?
Oh.
That's a good way. What's a good stereotype of a Minnesotan? Because honestly, I don't know.
I was gonna say because actually I enjoyed this kind of humor when I was a kid, but it was the Oli and Lena jokes. Minnesota, especially way back in the day, had a lot of immigrants from Sweden and Norway and the Scandinavian areas. So there's Oli and Lena jokes. There's lutefisk is a huge joke here. There are still churches that will do a lutefisk dinner, usually around the holidays. I have yet to have lutefisk, but it's on my list of things to try.
What's in it? I've never heard of it.
It's fish that has been soaked in lye. It was a way to preserve it way back in the day, back in the old country, so to speak. I'm actually Norwegian and Danish, so I can actually kind of say that.
I know that. I know Lutefisk. That's the rapper that was in that movie, Fast and the Furious.
Only if he's going, oh yeah, sure.
I want to see that movie. Actually, let's.
Is that a real Minnesotan accent?
Depends on where you go. Like the movie Fargo, which is hilarious because Fargo is actually in North Dakota, but
I was gonna say,
go there. But all the stuff that takes place in Minneapolis, there's not a very strong accent for people in the Twin Cities and in the city areas. The farther out you go from the bigger cities, you can find it.
I love it.
It's the rural areas.
Well,
right?
it's like you guys thinking we say a boot. Like we don't. We say about.
I have heard a boot. I have heard a boot.
Again, like what you're saying, it's the farther east you go. So you're getting towards it's in the small provinces. It's in like Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick, and it's the very small Eastern Maritimes.
I know from talking to a lot of Americans, when they think of Minnesota, the first thing they think of is cold weather and snow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very Canadian.
It's their little Canada down there.
Oh yeah.
So how close are you to the border?
Oh, how close am I? Oh.
No, sorry. Minnesota as a state. Like, where is it to state? Canada?
We're right below. We're just
it borders it.
There, it borders.
Yeah,
so there's places
like Saskatchewan. Probably.
No, that's a good question.
If you're cold, it's going to be Saskatchewan, Manitoba,
near North Dakota. So they're further back east. It should be under.
I got snowed in North Dakota once. That
Somebody pull up a map.
We opened a freaking door and there was snow like halfway up the door. I've never seen that in my life. I was only 7, but like, holy God, that was freaky as hell. Anyway.
Was that in 1991?
No, 1986.
Okay. There's if you ask Minnesotans about the weather, first off, we can talk about it forever.
They're right on the tip of Lake Superior. So
yes. So you're closer to Ontario.
Actually, they're on the edge of Ontario and Saskatchewan. And Manitoba.
Manitoba, yeah. wrong way. Okay, that makes sense. That's okay. I can place it. I can.
So, and if you go from Lake Superior, the very bottom, I guess you could say, is Duluth, and I'm about 2 hours south of Duluth.
Cool.
Oh, wow.
We measure distance and time too.
And Hertzy, were you raised? Were you raised in the faith, or did you come out of the faith, or were you always an atheist in your family, or how
I was raised Irish Roman Catholic in a church that was not very Bible thumpery. So, and my parents were also fairly liberal, and my dad was a huge geek. So there was some good rounding there that I didn't fall too far into stuff.
Another Catholic. So you and I have that in common.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did go to about 2 semesters of a Assemblies of God college. Don't ask. I still don't understand my logic at the time.
It's right down the street. I mean,
it actually is, because it's the North Central Bible College that Jim and Tammy Faye Baker came from.
Oh my God!
Oh, you poor kid.
It's downtown Minneapolis.
Oh, yikes.
In a video game, that would be like a nest of creatures that emerge from there. It would be like who's people spawn.
That's where they spawn. Yeah.
Is it? It's not in the Bible Belt, so is it a very Christian state?
Not super. Like, and in Minnesota, it is very much like you don't talk a lot of politics and you don't talk a lot of religion. You know, you don't.
That's kind of nice.
It's a very polite state. You know, they're polite.
It is. At the same time, I've also heard people say, like, because we don't talk about it as much, it's harder to talk about it as it's been coming up more and more. So it's not a super Christian state, but there are still pockets of people who, like, you know, it's like if it comes out that, oh yeah, I'm an atheist, they're just kind of like, what? Again, that kind of, the more rural areas you go, the more it can get that way.
I think that's a very common theme in general. I think you find that in the more urban centers, people are just a little bit more educated, and the more educated you are, it just changes how you think.
Well, and I think it's because you have so many different people packed together, and in the Twin Cities, like there are kind of areas of different groups, which is kind of frustrating. But there's, like, I grew up in this one spot in Hmong, where there's a fair number of Hmong and Laos immigrants who have come over. And then if you go, you know, in a different area, there's going to be a larger Somali group there, and it's you just get this mixed bag of people, and you just kind of got to roll with it at some point.
Yeah, that's very much Canada too.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. And how did you? I mean, you were raised Catholic, so what was your apostasy like? What did that look like?
Well, like I said, I went to that Assemblies of God college. That took a lot of wind out of some sails.
I bet.
Because I was just like, because I remember one time somebody was like, "Oh, by the way, you're going to hell," and I was like, "Huh?" Well, because you're Catholic and you haven't been saved. And I'm like, what?
Christians hate Catholics. I don't get it.
Oh yeah,
Protestants do. Yeah,
yeah, not all Catholics.
Catholics are Christians too. They're the Christians.
Sorry,
by default.
Catholics are the first Christians.
You're right, but see, that tells you my indoctrination as a child, because I was taught that Catholics are not Christians, and it's not even the Christian faith. So there you go.
This is something you hear a lot in the U.S. because they don't realize that actually the majority of Christians in the world are Catholics. The vast majority of them.
Yeah. So I apologize for that. That's totally my indoctrination.
No, I was thinking the same thing when you said it. I was like, yeah, exactly. Christians hate Catholic. I'm like, wait a second, they are.
Oh yeah.
But that's my indoctrination too. So I'm right there with you.
And if you really want to confuse a Christian that comes to you and tells you you're going to hell, I usually tell them, oh no, I'm going to Valhalla. I got VIP tickets. Way better service. Girls way hotter. I don't want to go to your stupid barbecue thing. It sucks.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of the things that came up there, for example, like I said, my dad was very much a geek, and so I grew up. We read, you know, The Hobbit. We read the Animorph series. Yes, Luna. We read.
Pay attention to me.
Yes, C.S.
Really
Lewis.
like that series.
We read all, and when we say reread, it was actually my dad who read, and he's a fantastic voice, and so he did all the voices and stuff. And we also did Harry Potter.
Awesome.
That's
which when going to an Assemblies of God college, there were people who thought that Harry Potter was evil. You know, it's like Halloween was our favorite holiday, and so there were people who were like, "Oh, we don't do that because it's Satanism." which also kind of started a lot of the questions I had about the Satanic Panic, because I remember like I was supposed to do this paper and I don't think I ever wrote it. It was supposed to be persuasive paper, and I was like, how many people think D&D is evil? And pretty much everybody raised their hand, and I'm like, I don't know how to talk to any of you because
it's not evil.
You have to roll the dice first.
I hadn't even like cracked open the books of D&D at that time, and I knew it wasn't evil. My dad played until I was like 5.
Yeah. I just was watching. There's a movie with Tom Hanks called Mazes and Monsters.
Yes. Ask me how many times I've seen it.
Oh yeah. It's like this guy's like literally deranged. He's just like, yes, so sire, we must go on to an adventure. Like, we got to go to school, man. He's like, we must do another adventure to slay the dragon. And they're like, wow, you've lost it, man.
That is such a bad movie, not just in the sense of it's a bad movie. It is Tom Hanks' first movie, but it is the psychology piece of the Satanic Panic, where they thought that people who played D&D would not be able to tell fiction from reality, like Tom Hanks' character.
Yeah, he's just like stuck in it.
I remember them talking about that when I was like in high school, and how it was so dangerous to play, and that this happened to someone. And this did it ever actually happen?
No, none of it.
Okay, I honestly I'm telling you, it was so drilled into us that
there's some people that were actually
it.
a bit like Pizzagate. There's some people that were actually taken to court and their lives ruined because they had a babysitting service, and people were accusing them of being.
No, I know the Satanic Panic isn't real. I'm talking about people not being able to differentiate reality from D&D, and like playing it for so long that they just never stop playing. Like because that was what we were told why we should never play. And
if you can get a group that can actually get together on a regular basis for 20 years, that is.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, can we swear? I totally.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
That is fucking amazing. That's a miracle.
I know lots of people who play, and I know that like some people get really into it. They dress up, they wear the figurines, but they're just playing a fucking game. They play for a few hours, and maybe they like are into it so that they're like planning their characters and doing all that shit. But like,
that's me.
It's a hobby. Like, I don't have that kind of imagination, and kudos to anyone who does. But
Brent Lee's got these costumes, the leather thing and the ball gag.
Well, yeah,
I got a ball gag.
I tried to play D&D. I really did, and I would have kept on going, but there was issues. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that.
Usually there's scheduling issues, or there can be player issues,
ex-boyfriend issues.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Right.
So I stopped. I would have continued.
I remembered my parents coming to me and having a serious talk with me as a kid, my teens, about avoiding satanic cults. And if you happen to be with your friends and they start to sacrifice goats, and call us, and we'll come to you. And I'm looking at them at the time. I'm looking at them and says, "Sacrifice goats, really?" I mean, come on. Right. I know the guys sometimes go around the fire camp over there and they'll smoke weed, but sacrifice goats?
Yeah. Tommy, come on, just cut the throat of the goat, dude. Everybody's doing it, bro.
I'm surprised it was a goat, because I've done some watched things in the past, and usually it's a cow.
Oh,
so like a farmer will find a dead cow, and they have this whole idea as to what's happened, and it's like, no, that's not what happened. It just died, and it's been a few days.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not a cult. It's a chupacabra. Okay, now these things are real. Now they like they suck all the blood out. And
up here, of course, it's not a cow. It's a moose. But but then you try to sacrifice.
But no, you're not allowed to sacrifice the moose here, because we're gifted a moose every time a child is born. They get a moose. Remember?
That's right.
That's right.
It's funny, some of the things you hear about Canadians. We've got to do that one day. We've got to do a Canadian versus U.S. quiz and see who can answer the most.
Well, we're kind of doing that with the candy show, which of course reminds me, now I'm gonna have to send a whole bunch of candy to Hertzy now.
Yeah,
so we can
and a T-shirt. Yeah, we'll do that at the same time.
I like candy.
It's Canadian candy too. It's stuff you just can't. Except Kinders, we will not ship those across the border because they will get confiscated.
We're planning on doing a show. We've sent it to Brent already, and Benjamin.
Yeah. Well, Benjamin better freaking lock this one up, because his kids got into the last one.
So we want to do a show, an episode where you guys are tasting candy that's not available to you.
Yeah. We're just waiting for you guys to be nice enough to ship us.
Benjamin's working on it, I think.
Yeah, we were getting an Amazon list together, and
there's 2 of us. You know.
I was gonna say, most of the U.S. candy, it's like Snickers or Twix.
We have that.
It's not really exciting.
But there's a lot of variations of Reese's peanut butter stuff. We have peanut butter cups. We don't have like that 3-pounder that you guys got. We didn't get that. There's lots of that kind of stuff.
You say that because you just want Reese's peanut butter cup.
Well, no, really. I'm not totally.
This is how she broke my hand. I tried to get a peanut butter cup. She hammered me with a hammer.
Quite honest with you,
you deserved it. Okay.
Twix is actually one of my favorite cups.
Now, if you like the peanut butter, if you do like peanut butter cups, the peanut butter trees, pumpkins, and hearts are way better because there's a higher ratio of peanut butter.
See, and that we don't have that kind of stuff here. We have peanut butter cups. We have the bigger peanut butter cups, but that's pretty much it. Okay. You guys had ones that had Reese's Pieces in them. We never had those. Like stuff like what else? There are some chocolate bars. Butterfinger. We don't get Butterfinger.
Okay.
Not regularly, anyway. Yeah, there's quite a few actually.
So about Reese's peanut butter cups, when exactly did you take on the identifier as atheist?
Yeah,
that's a segue.
Do it.
Thank you, Lee. I was heading that way.
It's an interesting family story too, because my whole family actually transitioned after a certain amount of time for each of us. And if you ask my mom and I who went first, we'll point to the other one.
It's her fault.
Cool, though.
Yeah. Because it was about the same. She had been getting a bunch of skeptic magazines, and that was kind of her thing because she was just ignoring some of the religious stuff, and then it permeated. For me, it just was separation long enough to just be like, well, what is going on? And then she's like, Hertzy, would you watch this movie with me? Because I can't watch it with your dad. And I'm like, okay, sure. And it was like long list of atheists. I don't even remember who was on there. And it was like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. All right. Now what?
Were you like regular churchgoer before that?
Oh, yeah. When I was growing up, we went every week. And we did all sorts of stuff with the church. And then once I left home, I basically just never went again.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Fair enough. And now, as an atheist, and now a newest member of the Bottom of the Barrel show, Left the Valley, what would your advice be to the budding person in their apostasy out there? What piece of advice would you give them? Wow, that's really deep.
Definitely look up, see if your state, city, etc. has a community, because a lot of them do. I'm also part of Minnesota Atheists, and work with them, and they're awesome. So check out around, see if there's groups and stuff who do that, Meetup, Facebook, whatever, because a lot of that can really help with that transition from getting out of religion. Having that community, building those friends and relationships is really awesome.
Actually, that's a really good point. I was going to ask the question of, did you find that you felt a loss of community when you left the church because you were involved? And then, as far as I know, most churches kind of shun you when you say, I don't believe anymore. So, you're no longer part of them.
Yeah. Like I said, I kind of was already fairly separated when I came to the conclusion and had some communities of other stuff. So it was like taking that step, and then I was like, oh, now what? Because if I wanted to join a church, it really wouldn't work. Yeah, we helped out with Sunday Assembly for a little while, and then moved over to the Minnesota Atheists.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, dear, and welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We expect great things from you down the road.
We'll see.
Perfect. What's that?
I said, I think it's going to be fun.
I think so too.
Definitely.
Perfect.